Alright, it's been a couple of weeks since my last video. It's also been quite some time since I even wanted to make a video, but I feel like I've got something worth talking about here. I've been busy and stressed out with a lot of other things and projects that have been really demanding my attention, so I couldn't, cut out time for this. So I'm hoping that maybe this is the start of something new. I can upload a lot more and have some more in-depth stuff. Um, I've had 3 video ideas on the back burner for about a month and a half now, and this is the first of those 3. In my opinion, this might actually be the music hot take of the century. There are a lot of music hot takes nowadays, and people love saying things about music. We got Fantano doing his reviews for the past 15 years. We've got people who throw hot takes around like they're the new baby at Christmas dinner. Um, but I think I genuinely have something that many people would look at and they'd scoff and they'd want to slap me if they heard me say this at like a dinner party. And that's I believe that Miles Davis is the weakest musician on Kind of Blue. So really quickly to sidetrack, I just realized it, but it's been a month since my last video, and my hair has grown in so much. What's crazy is that my hair never used to look like this. I used to have really straight hair, and I kind of like this right now. So, yeah, let's get into it. Miles is the weakest musician during the Kind of Blue sessions. And if anything, this should prove that this album is amazing. If Miles is the weakest musician here, everybody else is pretty much perfect down to a T. Uh, Leonard Bernstein had a way of describing Beethoven's process when writing music. It was as if he had a phone to God, and every time he picked it up while writing a piece of music, God would tell him what note to write next. And I believe that the musicians in this session had the exact same gift, only to improvise. Now, I'm going to kind of rank each of the 6 main musicians based on a couple of things. One, the technicality factor, how technical their playing is, how well they play, etc., etc., technicality. The second factor is lyricism. This is, are their solos very feely? Do they hold it down really well? And lyricism kind of contrasts with technicality, because sometimes there are solos in a lot of other music where technicality is emphasized but not lyricism, or lyricism is emphasized but not technicality. So you can have a really slow and lyrical melody that isn't technically difficult, or you could have a really fast, driven melody that's technically difficult but not lyrical. And the third factor is how well each musician fits in. The first musician I'm talking about here is, well, actually, before we get into him, I'm going to do a honorable mention of some people. Firstly, Wynton Kelly. Wynton Kelly is a great, great, great pianist. And the reason I'm starting with him is because he doesn't appear very much on this album. He plays a solo during Freddie Freeloader and comps on his instrument for the song, and that's the only time we see him. So, and his solo could be the best one on the album. It's not my favorite, but it's a huge exercise in jazz piano and understanding how to play the instrument itself and understanding soloing. So Wynton Kelly is very good, but I'm not going to rank him amongst these musicians. The other 2 musicians that I'm not going to rank them amongst the main 4 are Mr. PC, Paul Chambers on bass, and Jimmy Cobb on the drum set. Paul Chambers is an excellent bassist. It's really a shame that his career was cut short after he died. And Jimmy Cobb really just gets the job done. They are both excellent at what they do in the rhythm section, and I don't think it's fair to put them against Miles, John Coltrane, Cannonball Adderley, and even Bill Evans. I don't think it's fair to analyze them on a level of these musicians because, one, they don't have solos, and two, they do what they do very well. So I just want to get them out of the way before getting into who I believe is the best musician on this album, which is John Coltrane. He is superior to every other person involved in this project. Miles used to work with him in the early 50s, I believe, but he was eventually kicked out of whatever quintet or sextet Miles was a part of because of his drug addiction and his habits with I don't think it was what was it? I forget what it was. I think it might have been heroin. I don't remember off the top of my head, but Coltrane ended up kicking his drug habit, and he had sort of a renaissance in the mid to late 50s, eventually recording and releasing his own Giant Steps in 1960. It was recorded a little while after Kind of Blue, but it's a great record. I highly recommend it. John Coltrane is the best musician on this album. When you consider the fact that he kicked his drug habit, he grew as a musician, he grew as a person. The guy invented the Coltrane changes, and those are used and studied throughout the jazz world today. And he's been dead for some 50 years at this point, and John Coltrane's influence is seen all throughout this album. The best way I can describe Coltrane in the overall jazz canon is if jazz were the Bible and Charlie Parker was God, John Coltrane is Jesus. I think that's the best way to describe it, where people could understand it universally. But the amount of glazing I could do for John Coltrane all day, every day is insane. The only criticism I have is his solos are less lyrical compared to others, but he still has a lot of lyrical moments on this album, especially in Blue and Green. He shines on Blue and Green with Bill Evans. It is a beautiful track, beautiful, beautiful all the way through, even though it's only 5 minutes long. At other times, he plays really quickly compared to the backbeat. While most of this album is laid back, like So What isn't fast, it's very mellow, along with Freddie Freeloader and every other track here. Coltrane is able to pull a tempo from some place that nobody else is pulling it from. The only other person who really plays up tempo like Coltrane does is Cannonball Adderley. Considering outside factors and the challenges Coltrane faced in the mid to late 50s, he proves himself here to be an excellent musician. And if this was a John Coltrane album, it would make as much sense. If it wasn't Miles Davis's name that was the largest on the front of the album, and instead it was John Coltrane's, the album would still be great, and it would still make sense even if it was the same exact recording. Overall, I give John Coltrane a technicality rating of 5 out of 5, a lyrical rating of 5 out of 5, and a fit-in factor rating of 5 out of 5. He is perfect for this session. The next musician that I believe doesn't come close to Coltrane, but is still up there, is Cannonball Adderley. Cannonball is only second to Coltrane because he's not as technical. He's a little more lyrical most of the time compared to Coltrane, but he also doesn't appear on Blue and Green. Cannonball's playing is eclectic. It's lyrical, and it contrasts very well with Coltrane's almost frantic and urgent playing in a way. Cannonball's performance on So What might be my favorite of his because of how it feels compared to Coltrane. He is very much laid back. He's chill with it. He doesn't feel like he's trying to do crazy scale runs like Coltrane is. And I think that plays very well into what makes him a great musician during these sessions. So overall, I don't have a crazy amount of things to say about Cannonball because he's not somebody who's influenced me greatly. Coltrane has been a giant influence on me, and the next musician even more so. But Cannonball, I'm going to give him a technical rating of 4 out of 5, a lyrical rating of 5 out of 5, and a fit in factor of 5 out of 5. Something that should be noted about this entire album is all of the musicians fit in very well. Every single one of them plays their part extremely well. It doesn't feel off when somebody plays something differently. Even Miles feels at home during this recording session. The next musician that I'd like to rank is my personal favorite jazz piano player, Bill Evans. Now, I could make an entire video about how much I love this guy, about how much his playing has influenced me, about how much I love listening to him all the time. Bill Evans was there for me in some really hard times in my life, and he made me feel better, even though he's been dead for some 45 years. I feel almost a little biased when I put him here and say he's better than Miles, but he still is, in spite of the fact that he appears on 4 of the 5 tracks, as I mentioned earlier. He still is one step above Miles just because of what he's contributed to the album. While his solos aren't as technical in the sense that they're not fast, they still have the complex voicings of the occasional really open spread out chord and the block voicings where he can move it up, and he really shines here because of his work with George Russell and the Lydian chromatic concept, which is the base for the entire idea of this album, modal jazz. So the way I look at it is, even though Bill did not contribute any insane technical solos, he is still excellent here. Now, even though he's not technical, his lyricism is far superior to pretty much anyone here. Bill has this excellent ability to almost emulate Ravel and Debussy and a lot of romantic composers on the fly. It's genius. And another thing to note is, in spite of the fact that all of the songs on here are written, are credited having been written by Miles, it's worth noting a couple of things. One, Miles asked Bill to write Blue and Green. He gave him a set of 2 chords and asked him, "What can you do with this?" And Bill ended up writing Blue and Green. So it's been a long ongoing debate about who actually wrote most of the songs on here. I believe Bill wrote most of them. This is also backed up by the fact that Flamenco Sketches is much akin to Some Other Time from Leonard Bernstein's On the Town. And that is a standard that Bill Evans often performed with his own trio. So it's not a coincidence, but to ignore the fact that he had more of a hand as a composer in these sessions than as a really technical player, it really gives him a leg up on Miles, even though Miles is given most of the writing credits on here. In short, Evans is a really gifted writer and performer on this album, in spite of the fact that he doesn't receive a credit as a writer here. I have to give him a technicality factor of a 4 out of 5. He gets a lyricism factor of 5 out of 5, and he has a fit-in factor of 5 out of 5. And finally, we come to Miles. Now, Miles is in no way a bad musician. Miles is someone who has been incredibly influential to my playing, to my understanding of music, and without him, I wouldn't be who I am today. So, as a trumpet player myself, I have to note that his solos are not as technical as others. He has many more moments on many other albums in his own discography where he shines like a star. This album really isn't one of those. I know, crucify me. He still fits in really well. Miles is the only other musician besides John Coltrane to appear on all 5 tracks of this album. That being said, his solos are not technically difficult. Miles really shines when the tempo is high, And none of the tracks on here are extremely quick in tempo. The fastest moment you get is during like All Blues, and that's because it's 6/8 and it's kind of waltzy. But even then, it's not that fast. Miles worked with Charlie Parker throughout most of the 40s, and clearly, this is his area of specialty, playing something like bebop or taking it up tempo. Another thing, and this is controversial, I don't like Miles Davis's use of the Harmon mute. I think it's annoying. I think that it feels unnecessary sometimes, especially when he's playing long, drawn-out sections. It takes away from the lyricism and instead feels like a drone, like a really high-pitched drone, and that kind of distracts from the rest of the music. So I wish you would play it less. And while it's iconic, I think Miles is just better unmuted. While he isn't as strong as Coltrane or Cannonball or Bill, I can't act like Miles didn't have some sort of impact on the creation of this project. Without Miles, it's possible we would have never got to this point. He is responsible for bringing all these musicians together. He is responsible for seeing the potential in Coltrane and seeing the gifts of Adderley and understanding that even though Bill Evans is white, he met the moment very well as a musician. Miles is also arguably the reason Coltrane got clean. So to say that Miles has not had an impact throughout every musician on this project would be a lie, and it'd be an extreme disservice to John Coltrane himself, because without Miles, would Coltrane have gotten clean? I don't think we really know. So I have to give him credit where credit's due. Miles is an excellent musician. He is above and beyond, and most trumpet players would kill to have the discography that Miles Davis has. The only problem is, when compared to everyone else here in this session, he's the weakest. He's still really strong, but he is not as strong as Coltrane or Cannonball. So I'm trying something different really quickly to show the thought process behind what I say when these musicians are excellent and Miles is the weakest. You have to think of it as a scale. Now, usually someone would think of it like this, where you've got, and then someone would probably say Miles is somewhere down here, and Bill Evans is somewhere right here, and Cannonball's here, and Coltrane's like all the way up here. This is not a good way of visualizing it, because this puts Miles at about a 25% compared to Coltrane's 100%, when in reality, they're a whole lot closer than that. It looks more something like this, where you've got 90 here and 100 here. So then this entire thing, if you were to do it on an actual 0 to 100 scale, all of these musicians appear in like this area right here. You see? So I hope this helped explain my thought process a little more. Even though Miles is the weakest in the session, he is still excellent. He's still a great musician overall, and he is pretty much responsible for the existence of this album as a whole. So to say he didn't have some sort of giant role to play in bringing everyone together would do him a disservice, and I can't do that in good conscience. Yeah, I think that's about it for the rest of this video. Let me know what you guys think. All right? Peace.